बदल सकते अपने लाइफ का ट्रैक एंड नेवर लुक बैक।
यार छोड़ो ये सारे हैक्स एंड सिंपली लर्न टू गेट अहेड।
जैसे कि दानिश, a civil engineer turned data scientist who decided to simply learn.
और कैसे हुआ ये पॉसिबल?
With a course from a premier university, मेरे करियर ने लिया एक नया डायरेक्शन।
True champion who upskilled to win big. How big?
A massive hike that transformed my life.
Danish changed gears pretty early in the race. But Prasan wanted to explore more to get ahead. इसीलिए उसने करा Simply Learn. From mechanical engineering to a data analyst and a podcaster in his free time.
ऐसा करियर ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन कैसे ब्रो?
सिंपलीलर्न के इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट से सीखा लाइव और खुद बन गया डेटा एक्सपर्ट।
इतना कुछ इतनी जल्दी डिफिकल्ट तो रहा होगा।
With a well-structured course, it felt like a piece of cake.
That is simply awesome. What's also awesome is that 9 साल के long career के बाद Nitin didn't choose a quick fix. He just added data science
into the mix. Nitin, how did you change the game?
Worked on real industry problems to become the real deal.
A joint family, a regular job, responsibilities तो बहुत थी, but nothing could stop Nitin from getting ahead. What an all-rounder.
Day ho ya night, with flexible learning, you can always make it right.
पैशन या सिचुएशन चाहे जो भी हो, नितिन, दानिश और प्रसन की तरह you too will find your way to get ahead when you simply learn. क्योंकि आपके लिए शॉर्टकट्स नहीं, simply learn है सही. Get ahead with simply learn.
Recording in progress.
Hi folks, we'll be starting the free career masterclass in few minutes. I can see a lot of introductions coming in on chat here as we start the session. So it's fantastic to have you on board. I'm Rasha. I'm all the way joining from Bangalore, India, and I'm thrilled to be a host today. You can drop us a hello on the chat here. Let us know your name and where are you tuning in from. We can have a little bit of conversation on the chat here before we start. So in this session, we'll be talking about stepping into AI/ML in 2024, pitfalls, and how to navigate them. We already have our speaker here with us, Jeremy Samuelson. Welcome, Jeremy. Before we start, let me quickly take you through the ground rules here. If you have any question for our speaker here, you can put down those questions in the Q&A box. It's very easy to navigate. Right now, we are having a conversation on the chat box here, and it's just beside the chat box, the Q&A box. So due to the volume of messages we get on chat, so we might actually miss your query there. So please help us out by putting down your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to address all of your queries towards the end of the session. The session is being recorded. In case you want to go through the recording of the session once again, you can expect a follow-up email with recording link, webinar certificate, and also a bonus offer for attending this webinar for the program part which we'll be talking about in the upcoming session. Also, to request a proof of attendance for this webinar, you can enter your name in the post-webinar survey. That is something we'll be getting once the webinar ends. And in case you want your full name in the webinar certificate, so make sure to fill the post-webinar survey. If you have any questions about the webinar survey, we can answer that towards the end of the session. We'll take some time for that. So let us know if you have any questions about the ground rules here. This webinar is powered by Simplilearn, the world's #1 online bootcamp. We are very proud that we have been in the digital skills training space for almost 13 years. We have advanced almost 5 lakh plus careers in over 150 plus countries, and we have 800 plus qualified trainers. We have category of diverse courses, AI machine learning, which we'll be covering today, data science, business analytics, cybersecurity, project management, and many more categories which we cover. So before we start, let me quickly take you through the agenda of today's webinar here. So obviously, we'll be getting to know a little bit more about you, how we can help you out better in your career. If you're here, basically, you are an AI/ML aspirant here, you're interested in basically moving towards AI/ML, or you have questions about AI/ML career in general, or about the program which we'll be covering. We will be talking about stepping into AI/ML in 2024. And about careers in AI machine learning in 2024, the hottest skills, the hottest career paths you can take up. And also what is the UT Dallas Bootcamp, we'll be covering about that as well. And also learner outcomes, enrollment steps of the program, and the Q&A part. So there'll be a special duration for the Q&A part. So in case you have any questions, you can let us know in the Q&A box, and we'll try to take as many questions throughout the session. But in case we are not able to address it, we'll address it towards the end of the session. Also, for the webinar certificate, you need to stay till the end of the session. So please make sure to do that. Moving on, as I said, that we'll be getting to know a little bit more about you. So let's start with a quick poll here. So the poll here says that how many years of experience do you currently have? So you can select from any of the 4 options, which is the most suitable for you. I'll just read it out for you. So the first one here is currently studying. Second one, 0 to 3 years of experience. Third one, 3 to 5 years of experience. And the last one, more than 5 years of experience. So as I was speaking, folks have already started sharing their responses on the poll here. That's great. It's always good to know, right? Like folks who are joining us, what experience of timeline they come from. Also, I see a lot of introductions coming in on chat here as we have started the session. So I can see Stephen has joined from Maryland, USA. I can see GB Hamilton has joined from Texas, USA. I can see Darren has joined from Atlanta, and I can see Phil has joined from New Jersey. I can see someone has joined from Saudi Arabia. Kano has joined from Nigeria. And Steve has joined from Boston. And Adila is joined from Cairo. As we can see that folks have joined not only from the US, but also different countries. So that's great. Keep the introductions coming in. It's always good to network, right, these events before we start. So let's get to know each other a little better. And as we were speaking, actually, we have gotten most of the responses on the poll here. So I'll just give last 5 seconds more for the poll. How many years of experience do you currently have? Please let us know on the quick poll which you see on the screen here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me quickly end the poll and also share the result with you folks. As we can see that 45% of the folks who have joined us have more than 5 years of experience. And completely opposite of it, we also have 43% of the folks who are currently studying. So that's interesting. And we have few votes for 0 to 3 years of experience and 3 to 5 years of experience as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We have gotten a really active set of audience here. And as we move ahead, we already have a speaker, Jeremy Samuelson, here with us. Jeremy, first of all, would like to welcome you and thank you for taking the time out for this webinar today, the masterclass today. And we have an interesting session lined up. We'll be talking about AI/ML. So would you like to give us your introduction to the crowd here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, good morning or good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. I actually find it very cool seeing in the chat just that we have a lot of people coming from a lot of different places around the world. So very cool. I think this is probably the most diverse crowd we've had actually for one of these. So, but yeah, I'm Jeremy Samuelson. So I'm joining you from Atlanta, Georgia. I see a number of you are actually also in Atlanta here with me. That's cool. So I have actually been in industry as a data scientist and machine learning engineer for a little over 15 years. My 15-year mark or anniversary was back in July. Um, and yeah, I've worked in a number of industry sectors. I spent the first 3 years about of my career uh, doing analysis in hospitals for healthcare to help different hospitals optimize their patient throughput or their nurse staff scheduling, all of that kind of stuff. Then transitioned into financial services, was in financial services for a long time, not a lot of years. Then kind of took a little detour, did some research for a little bit with a startup out of Silicon Valley. Transitioned into supply chain management and some logistics work for another 3 years. And then presently find myself back in financial services. It's a fun space to be in. Um, so yeah, and I'm primarily working on fraud detection actually in my current role. So yeah, so I've seen a lot of different things. I've dealt with a lot of different types of clients in a lot of different spaces, and yeah, it's been fun. So I'm excited for all of you who are looking to start your journey in this space.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for your introduction. And once again, welcome to the masterclass here. As we move on, we'll be talking about how basically stepping into AI/ML in 2024 and what are the pitfalls and how you can navigate them. And also, folks, if you have any insights or any basically suggestions, ideas, or you know about this topic, you can let us know in the chat here. Feel free to share. We basically love having a conversation on the chat here. So let's start. So let's start with rapid technological advancements, Jeremy.
Yeah, so I would say that's definitely a real challenge about this field is that it moves very rapidly, and I would say that's always been true actually while I've been in industry. That I've never felt like it was easy to keep up with everything that was going on. But I would say right now, especially, things really are moving fast. Things really are changing a lot. So I'm sure all of you are aware, that OpenAI released Chat GPT in November of last year, so a year ago now. Um, that actually is and has been the fastest growing application in history. The time that they took to reach 100 million users is the fastest that we've ever seen. So this kind of exposure now that the public has to deep learning, to large language models, to generative AI has really led to this kind of massive wave of interest that people have. People want to learn about it. Clients want to know how it can benefit them. They want people who have the expertise to be able to implement this kind of solution for them. And also, there's just a lot of research being done, not just in the advancement of how these models work to make them better, but also people are just kind of thinking in all sorts of different directions in terms of like what could you apply this to, right? Like how, like what industry sector could you apply this to? How could you apply it? So, yeah, that kind of sort of mental flexibility, I think, is very important and has taken a lot of time and energy in the past year to kind of keep up with all the changes that are happening. Absolutely.
Let's move on to the next slide. So we'll talk about data quality and ethical concerns, which is again like another thing, which is pretty trending.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say data really is kind of the thing that determines who has the greatest success, right? So in all these sort of arms races that are out there with data and with machine learning and AI, it really does come down more than anything to who has access to more data and data of higher quality. Because there are all these things. So it mentions here in the slide that data may actually be noisy, it may be biased, and all of these different machine learning and deep learning and AI related solutions can be very swayed by that. I'm sure many of you have heard the term like garbage in, garbage out. That's absolutely true. So, as powerful and as elegant as a lot of these algorithms are, they really do rely on high quality data. So, that's a big thing. Um, and then also, we as data scientists and machine learning engineers have to think very carefully about what sorts of data do we want to include in our analyses and what sorts of data do we want to include in our models. So that's certainly been an ethical concern, I think, in examples where, say, machine learning and AI have been applied to the criminal justice system, right, to determine whether an inmate gets paroled, or to determine what kind of sentence a defendant should be assigned, or things like that. Um, there have been cases where researchers have found systemic unfairness, systemic biases in those models that have been applied, and a lot of that sort of comes down to, again, what types of variables do we choose to include as the scientists and engineers who build those types of systems. So that's also a very important thing to consider.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Jeremy. Let's move on to the next slide here. So model interpretivity.
Yes. This is a huge topic, actually, a huge topic that's a very hot topic in research right now, is this idea of explainable AI, or interpretable AI. Many of you probably have heard that with deep learning, right, with deep neural networks, being able to interpret what specifically is going on, like, being able to kind of make real, practical sense of the inner workings of a neural network, has, you know, until now actually been out of reach for us. And in fact, to a degree, it still is. It's still very, very difficult to do very well. And in, kind of general applications, right? In some applications, such as computer vision, it's actually easier to get a good sense for what different layers are doing, or, to kind of get a sense in terms of the meaning of what different hidden layers are about. Um, but yeah, in general, this is still very, very hard, and that's actually led to sort of the rise of an entirely new class of model that we also refer to as explainer models. So you guys can see on the slide, there's LIME or SHAP, which SHAP I would say is probably the most in use, kind of like the most broadly used that you'll see. It's one that I actually use daily in our fraud detection models. So we have to have, clear explanations, right? So for example, you have a consumer apply for some kind of line of credit. The issuer of that credit checks with our model to see if we suspect that identity fraud is happening. And if we do, they may choose to not approve that account. If that consumer is denied for that account, right, for that line of credit, they actually are owed an explanation about, why did you guys deny my credit application? And we have to be able to give real explanations. You can't just say, well, our magical AI model said you couldn't have a said you couldn't have a credit card. You actually do have to, give, real explanations about what it is that you saw in their application. And as much as possible, actually, we try to give what are called counterfactual explanations, which is that you can kind of say, in this particular case, if this variable had been this instead of that, this actually might have led to a different result. So you can really kind of explain, like, why certain things sort of led to the decision that you got out of the model. So yeah, very exciting. That's actually a huge, huge thing that we're seeing develop a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking us through that. And also, let's talk about hardware scalability and resource management in the year 2024
Okay.
AI for AI.
Yeah, this is also a big one. This actually has been a big one, I think, for since the beginning in machine learning and AI. So maybe some of you have seen this or heard of this, that back in the 1950s, there was an algorithm developed that was called the perceptron. in the early 60s, there was actually a news story that was printed about how scientists were speculating that within a handful of years, that model would become self aware. It would be able to replicate itself, that basically in every way it would seemingly be like artificial life, not just artificial intelligence. Um, Obviously, that didn't happen. So that's also a thing. There's been AI hype from the beginning as well. But yeah, I think a big part of that, the kind of why that prediction was so wrong, is because scientists back then, I think, grossly underestimated the amount of data it would take to actually develop these models and train them, but also the amount of compute power, right? And they were very limited in terms of the compute power that was available to them. So that's always been kind of a limiting factor for the progress and the development of deep learning and AI. Today, we're finding that that is not the case as much, right? With the advent of all these really convenient cloud platforms such as AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and all of the sort of, I don't know, maybe like, the next tier down things like IBM or DigitalOcean, some of those other ones that are out there. So that's still a thing that we have to care about, though, or that we have to think about, because even though technically the compute resources are there, you do have access to them in a sense, like, or at least they exist today, which is a thing that hasn't always been true. But now we actually have to think about how are we being efficient in the utilization of those resources, because any company you work for is going to have a monthly budget, right? Of like how much can they spend on cloud resources and things like that. And it definitely becomes a problem for them if you are, kind of in your goal of scalability, if you exceed the budget. So we have to kind of think about scalability, but we also kind of have to think about efficiency and sort of like the budgeting concerns around that kind of stuff as well, for sure.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing interesting insights on hardware scalability and resource management. Moving on, we'll be talking about careers in AI and machine learning in 2024. So basically, as we can see, these are the hottest AI ML career paths which open up in 2024. Can you take us through these career paths here?
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, anywhere you go, there actually may be some fuzziness at the borders between these, right? So, if you try too hard to kind of clearly define, like, well, what does a machine learning engineer do versus what does a data scientist do? You may be a little surprised or frustrated when you go to work at a particular company and maybe your job title is data scientist, but then they also have you doing some stuff that you think maybe a machine learning engineer would do. Not not uncommon at all. Um, but broadly, at least, we'll start with the data engineer actually. So the data engineer kind of is like the foundation for a lot of that stuff. So as a data scientist or as a machine learning engineer or someone who builds AI models, ultimately you can't do anything if you don't have access to data, and if you don't have real trust in that data set in terms of how accurate it is, how reliable it is. And the people who actually make sure that you have that are the data engineers. So the people who build and optimize databases, build pipelines for data that flows between databases or from the database to your model. Um, all of that is done by the data engineers and the data engineering team. And yeah, without them, we wouldn't really be able to do any of this other stuff. They should be walking around wearing capes, as far as I'm concerned, because yeah, they kind of make it all happen. Um, Aside from that, you have the data scientists who, again, this is a little bit variable depending on where you go. Um, but ultimately, they are responsible for then, once you've got the data engineer who's built this beautiful ETL pipeline for all the data scientist is then responsible for making sure we get meaningful insights out of that data, which is kind of the point of the whole thing, right? That's sort of why businesses invest in data and data architecture and things like that. Um, so what a data scientist does could be highly varied. It could be that you're making reports or dashboards to just share insights with, decision-making stakeholders in terms of like what's happening in their department or, in their sort of segment of the company and what should they do in certain situations. It often does involve statistical modeling or machine learning, because really, um, honestly, a lot of the time, a particular process and what's happening in a process is actually quite nuanced. And so you can't always get at it with just, kind of like these nice, simple visualizations. Quite often, to really get to the bottom of what goes into a process, how would you optimize it, all that kind of stuff, you have to build a model for that process. So, and that could be anything. It could be machine learning, could be like some kind of agent based simulation, it could be some type of like stochastic like operations research model. So there are a lot of things that could go into that. In some places, if you're a data scientist and you've built a model, you may also be expected to have to deploy it yourself. Kind of depends on the budget, for the size of the company you're in and all that kind of stuff. However, it's becoming more and more common that in more companies, you're actually not, as the data scientist, expected to deploy your own work or deploy your own model. So, as the data scientist, you'll kind of get that model to sort of like a proof of concept step. Now, after that, if it actually needs to be scaled up to ingest larger volumes of data, or data at a higher velocity, and there's some kind of ETL pipelining that has to be done to kind of plug the model into the whole operational system that it's supposed to work with. um, so that's sort of a different skill set, but this is someone who also still needs to understand how machine learning works, so that they can still ensure that the model that was deployed is at least logically the same as the model that was sort of handed to them as a proof of concept, even if they had to change it to make it, say, faster, or to handle different kinds of operational error situations or whatever. So that person then is the machine learning engineer who kind of takes the proof of concept model from the data scientist, gets that deployed and operationalized as part of the sort of operational system. And then within artificial intelligence, you can have these different roles: the AI developer or AI architect, which again, in different companies, may actually look indiscernible from a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. But also in certain companies, like Facebook is one example, or I guess Meta now, sorry, um, where they have a role that's like a machine learning scientist or an AI scientist. And these are actually the people that kind of really deep dive into the theory of how these models work. And so that's out of these types of teams, you'll see actually the development of like new original models. Like, again, using the example of Meta, currently they have Llama, which is their large language model, but before that they had Facebook Prophet, which is a very powerful time series prediction model. So they do have scientists and researchers that actually develop original models as well. So yeah, that would
Tho-
be my breakdown of those four.
those are some interesting career paths to take up in 2024 in AIML. Thank you so much for taking us through that journey. Now, moving on to the hottest skills in AIML 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these are actually, I think, quite big. Computer vision's always been big. I think largely the thing that drives computer vision is autonomous vehicles. So, in order for the car to be able to, see what is around it, identify different things, pedestrians, other cars, lane boundaries, all that kind of stuff, that all falls under computer vision, and that really is sort of the crux of what you have to achieve there. Um, Time series analysis, very huge in the finance sector, and will continue to be for ever, right? So trying to forecast what's going to happen in different markets, right? Equities markets, bond markets, commodity markets, that kind of thing. Um, let's see. Let's see if we can kind of pick out some that are especially big. So yeah, cloud computing, distributed computing, again, because of how big the data sets are becoming, and how big some of these models are becoming. That's definitely becoming a more hotly desired skill set. In fact, to give you some idea, the desktop that I have, it's in another room, um, actually has 4 GPUs. So again, hardware acceleration is kind of a big part of that as well. So you might use GPUs instead of just your normal CPU. So I have 4 NVIDIA RTX 8000 GPUs in that machine. So in total, I have about 48 gigabytes of video RAM or VRAM. And there are models I've used that actually are still just the model itself. Before you think about any data set you would feed through it, just the model itself is um, bigger than the amount of VRAM that one GPU has. And so you need to find ways to distribute the model itself over multiple chips. So yeah, that's absolutely becoming a really really big thing. Neural architecture search, huge area of research, and has been from the beginning as well. So the architecture is a pretty nebulous term in neural networks. So it could refer to, and well, does refer to this, but is not limited to this, to all the things I'm going to tell you. The number of hidden layers that you have for the neural network, how many neurons are in each hidden layer, and they don't have to all be the same. So each layer is kind of like its own sort of set of parameters. Um, are you going to regularize the model? If so, what's the methodology you're going to use? Are you going to use dropout? If so, what's the dropout rate? Are you going to use like LP regularization? In that case, what's P? What's lambda? Um, what are your activation functions? Are these densely connected layers? Are they convolutional layers or recurrent layers or residual layers or something else? So so basically what this leads to is your sort of hyperparameter space that you're searching for sort of the optimal architecture in your neural network is massive. It's very high dimensional, very, very difficult to find an optimal solution within such a high dimensional space. So this basically any work that could be done to like make this easier or make this faster. Um, really anybody is like trying to get their hands on kind of a better answer for how to do that. It's very, very difficult, very computationally intensive, and I would say actually this one thing more than anything else, this neural architecture search, is what has led to so much advancement in the other things on this list. So like the AI optimized hardware part about GPUs and TPUs, cloud computing, distributed computing, all of that kind of stuff really is largely motivated by just how computationally intensive it is to lock down what is that optimal setting of all the hyperparameters involved in your neural network architecture.
Those are some interesting skills to take up in AI/ML 2024. Just this is a most asked question. Just want to put it out there, Jeremy. Is AI going to affect the cybersecurity jobs? Because as we can see, one of the hottest skills, here in 2024 is AI-driven cybersecurity. Can you tell us a little bit about that, good or bad?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to take anyone's job in cybersecurity. But it definitely is playing a bigger role in cybersecurity these days. And I think it kind of makes it so that even outside of just, direct, data scientists or anybody on a direct data science team, maybe your career is in cybersecurity. You may be kind of obliged going forward to at least know something about AI or machine learning because those are becoming more and more important. One example, I was brought in on this, and this was in the news, so I can tell you guys about this. I'm not breaking any kind of like NDA to tell you this. So, Chick-fil-A, rather large fast food chain, at least here in the US. I don't know how big they are everywhere. So, they have an app like everybody does these days, and their app actually was breached. Um, they were kind of unaware of this, that this was a possibility, but yeah, they experienced what's called a credential stuffing attack, where fraudsters buy credentials that have been compromised in these like massive lists. A fraudster knows, at any given time, one of these lists that they've bought, maybe only 1 or 2% of the credentials that they have in that list are actually, good. So you basically build a bot that just very quickly like stuffs everything on the list through this login portal just to see what works, right? Just to see like what credentials actually can get you in. Um, and there are clear signs when this is happening that a machine learning model can identify and can just kind of cut off that traffic and stop the credential stuffing attack from happening. But that's, again, if you are aware that that's a threat and that you should have a solution for that kind of thing, which Chick-fil-A at the time didn't know. So, I'm actually on a team that is talking to Chick-fil-A right now about what kind of solutions can we put in place to protect the login portal for their app. And the primary thing that we're looking at, and that's partly why I'm involved, is a machine learning solution that can identify when traffic is malicious and just cut that off. So so I think it's going to be a very, very big part. And yes, shockingly, I can understand like fraudsters trying to hack into like banking portals or like HR portals like Paycor or ADP, where there's a lot of sensitive information about people in there. But apparently even our reward points for chicken nuggets aren't safe. Frauds, like someone actually like took the time and effort to like make a bot and like mount a credential stuffing attack to breach the Chick-fil-A app. So, you really have to kind of have protection in place for everything. And it's too much for a single human or for even a team of humans to monitor. You need to utilize AI and machine learning to watch out for that. So yeah, it's definitely going to be moving into that space more and more, but I don't think it's going to take anyone's job. I think you just kind of have to be more aware of it.
Thank you so much for answering that. So now moving on. Thank you so much for answering that, Jeremy. Am I audible?
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. So we have talked about the skills, we have talked about the career paths, and you are here because basically you are interested in AI/ML. So what exactly is the biggest challenge here when it comes to taking up a career in AI/ML or becoming an AI/ML expert? So what's stopping you from becoming an AI/ML expert? You can see a quick poll on your screen. This is a multiple choice question. So you can select multiple options because there can be multiple concerns, right? So I'll just read out those options for you. The first one being, I can't find a program with a fully comprehensive curriculum. Second one, I don't have the practical exposure I need to become job ready. Third one, I find it difficult to learn from pre-recorded videos. And the last one, my work schedule won't allow me enough time for learning. And as I was speaking, folks have already started sharing their biggest challenge, biggest concerns on the poll here. So I'll just give, I think, 15 seconds more for other folks to share their responses. And also, in case this poll does not cover your concern or challenge you are facing when you basically are trying to aspire a career in AI/ML or transition towards it, you can let us know in the Q&A box or in the chat box also. So that is also totally okay. So I think I'll just give 10 seconds more for a few of the folks who are yet to share with us. And also, folks, thank you for your interesting questions. We are getting on the Q&A box. We will be addressing them shortly. And please, if you have any questions, you can let us know in the Q&A box. We'll be taking the questions pretty soon. Okay, I think most of the folks have already shared what exactly is the biggest challenge here. Let me quickly end the poll in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And also share the result with you folks. So as we can see that we have gotten 54% of the votes here for I wouldn't get the practical exposure I need to become job ready. And 39% of the folks have shared I can't find a program with a fully comprehensive curriculum. And 20% of the folks have shared my work schedule won't allow me enough time for learning. And 17% of the folks have shared I find difficult to learn from pre-recorded videos. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, your biggest challenge here when it comes to taking up a AI/ML career. So let me introduce you to the UT Dallas AI/ML and Machine Learning Bootcamp here. So it comes with a comprehensive industry-aligned curriculum. You get access to integrated hands-on labs and projects, online virtual classrooms, and this program will be flexible to fit your lifestyle in case you're a working professional, which we saw a lot of you. Almost 40% of you were having more than 5 years of experience. The learning format here is online, and you can complete this program in 6 months, and you can just complete it by giving 10 to 15 hours per week. Also, at the end of it all, you get a UT Dallas Academic Excellence Bootcamp certificate, as you can see on the screen here, by Erik, Jonsson School of Engineering and Computer Science of University of Texas at Dallas. Core and effective course certificates also you'll be getting through this program, and a UT Dallas Circle membership. You get to be a part of learners who basically come from different industries and also different companies, and you will be basically getting a recognition and an online convocation. So you can not only invite your closest friends and family, but also far relatives and far friends. So that's pretty interesting about part about the online convocation here. Also, let's talk about the UT Dallas advantage here. So the University of Texas at Dallas is a renowned institution with a rich history of academic excellence. It is home to distinguished faculties and members, researchers, fostering an environment of innovation and learning. And it is consistently recognized as one of the top tier research universities, providing students with cutting edge knowledge and resources. And how having a UT Dallas basically university on a CV is highly respected and acknowledged globally, opening doors to many diverse careers and opportunities and networks. So I think someone asked about what is the eligibility and prerequisites. In this, you need to have a prior experience in or knowledge of mathematics and programming. and a high school diploma or equivalent at least 18 years of age, and 2 or more years of work experience is preferred. It's preferred, it doesn't have to be necessarily. It's good if you have an experience. So, Jeremy, just I'm pretty sure the aspiring set of learners, might have this question in mind, that folks who don't have that much knowledge in mathematics and programming, what level of knowledge or experience are we expecting them to have? And if not, the program does cover a lot of it, right? Like it introduces you to the
Mhm.
basic concepts as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I would say in terms of the math, probably what you can do is maybe just brush up on some of your probability and statistics, just to make sure that you're comfortable with that kind of thing. Because in data science, yeah, those are really kind of the core, especially Bayesian statistics, Bayesian probability, are really sort of the kind of core idea within machine learning, right? That you can kind of have prior beliefs about data. You can observe more or about a certain process, observe data about the process, and then update your beliefs. I mean, that's really kind of how it all works. So you'll want to be very familiar with that. Um, the things that we will probably that you probably will be a little bit rusty on, at least, but that we can kind of help you out with once you get into the program, would be linear algebra and calculus. So in order to be able to efficiently compute the data sets that we have and the inputs that we have, data sets are actually treated as vectors and matrices. And actually, you'll find that a lot of these models, you can translate kind of like what happens on like a per case basis to dealing with the whole data set actually as like matrix multiplication or like matrix vector products, things like that. And that's how we actually do the compute step of this as efficiently as possible. So that's not a thing that we expect you to know coming in. That's the thing that definitely can be kind of explained to you or taught to you. And same with the calculus bit. And there actually isn't a ton of calculus. It really is just derivatives that you would have to know in order to calculate what are called the gradients that allow you to train the model using the numerical method that's used to train these types of models. Programming, I would say just sort of some basics in Python, which is actually very relatively easy high level language. So compared to something like C or C++, uh, quite a bit easier to pick up. In terms of the specific packages or tools that are used in data science, like the NumPy stack, like TensorFlow, things like that, we also cover that kind of stuff in the curriculum. So you don't need to be an expert in programming or anything like that already to come in.
Thank you so much for answering that and giving a detailed explanation. I think we'll be talking more about the program, how exactly it prepares you. Moving on to that. The program, how does it build your AI skills step by step? Can you take us through that, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so we start kind of at the bottom here of this visualization with the orientation, which more than anything actually just kind of lays the groundwork for, what can you expect from the program? What does the program expect from you to be successful? All of that kind of stuff. Then you get sort of a higher level introduction to artificial intelligence. So at this stage, you don't get like a deep dive into any of the math or the theory. It's more about kind of at a high level, what is it? What kinds of things could it be applied to? That kind of stuff. Um, then the next course, applied data science with Python, um, really is kind of more about how do you think about the data, right? How do you deal with different things that show up in real data sets, like missing values, outliers? How can those sort of things throw off your analysis? What do you do about it? We look into visualization libraries to kind of show you, well, one, you kind of need to communicate to yourself what's happening in the data as you're looking at it, but also how do you communicate findings to others. So that's a lot of what's covered in that class. Then we get into machine learning, which is sort of your first, I think, kind of proper deep dive into the theory of anything. Although the machine learning algorithms that are covered there are more what would be called sort of classical machine learning. So that would be like linear regression, logistic regression, um, random forests, which are based on decision trees, support vector machines, that kind of stuff. Then once you guys kind of have that foundation of these different classical machine learning algorithms, we actually then extend that into deep learning, which involves neural networks. So that comes up in the class deep learning with Keras and TensorFlow. Keras and TensorFlow being sort of the current gold standard frameworks for building deep learning models. Then we get into kind of, again, current cutting edge, essentials of generative AI, prompt engineering, and chat GPT. So when it comes to large language models and generative AI, it's probably not the case that you will actually be building a model like that from scratch. Because of just the time and the cost involved. I mean, the CEO of OpenAI has actually said, at least roughly, it costs them about $1 billion to develop GPT-4, which is the model behind ChatGPT. Most companies don't have $1 billion to develop a model, and so when it comes to generative AI applications, you're usually not building your own model. You're instead figuring out how do you use existing models, right? So how do you engineer your prompts to be as specific as possible to really control, are we getting the output we want out of the model? And different frameworks for how do you kind of orchestrate things with an LLM, or how do you communicate with it? How do you have different agents that route different things, all that kind of stuff. So that's what that last class is about. And then finally, you get to your capstone project, which I should mention as well. This isn't the first time that you would get like hands-on experience in the program. So there are projects and assignments that are hands-on that you would need to do in a lot of these classes, especially from, I would say, machine learning on. That's really when you kind of get into projects that start to look like real projects. But then finally, all of that, everything you've learned is kind of taken together in this big final capstone project at the end, which really does look like kind of more of an industry type project that you might work on.
Thank you so much for taking us through the steps, Jeremy. Also, the electives here, the advanced deep learning and machine vision, NLP and speech recognition, reinforcement learning, UTLS, AIML Bootcamp masterclasses you get access to as electives are optional, and they come as a part of the program. But it is up to you if you want to take them, and we don't charge anything extra for it. It comes as a part of the program fee. So the tools and platforms which you'll be learning in this program, as you can see, Python, MATLAB, Django, OpenCV, Keras, TensorFlow, and many more tools and platforms will be covering this program. For Jeremy, for someone who completely is coming from a different background, what do you suggest for them to start with? Maybe like one of the tools you can tell us about.
I would say the first thing is just to learn Python, just to understand what are the data structures in Python, what are the sort of control flows within Python, because everything really is sort of based on that. And actually, a lot of things too, as you get into certain packages, like say TensorFlow or Keras, the syntax that you'll encounter is like suddenly very different. So yeah, it's kind of like you really will sort of need like specific instruction, and you do get that, especially in the deep learning with Keras and TensorFlow course. We do cover specifically like sort of like how does this particular package or framework work. So some of these others like scikit-learn, again, we'll cover that in the machine learning course. The syntax for scikit-learn is actually very easy, but that has a lot of like very solid, very robust implementations of different classical machine learning models. Django and Flask are very useful, but they definitely come later. So I would say don't worry about that prior to the starting of the class. Where these come up is if you're going to operationalize a model, depending on how the model is going to be used and a number of different things. A very common way that you would actually deploy or operationalize a model is you'll put it in an API, and then there'll be documentation for whoever needs to interface with your model for how they call the API, how they send inputs into the model, and then what kinds of outputs they can expect to come out. Django and Flask are, among other things, they're used in web development a lot, but they actually do have very nice implementations for APIs, so that's why we use them in data science. And then, yeah, matplotlib is actually sort of the basis for visualization. Again, we'll cover that. You don't need to make sure that that's a thing you already know coming in. And then same with, some of these other ones, OpenCV or NLTK. The NLTK stands for the Natural Language Toolkit. It's actually a massive framework in and of itself, but basically all of the different tools that you would have for any kind of natural language processing come bundled up quite nicely in that package.
Thank you so much for taking us through the tools and platforms you'll be learning in this program journey. Now, moving on the Capstone projects, which we already you have talked about. How does having a Capstone project in your CV once you're done with the program helps you showcase your future employees the true experience in your portfolio? You can choose from several domains here in this particular program. The projects combine real-world business requirements with virtual labs for hands-on learning, and Capstone projects are rigorous and provide great examples for your portfolio. Also, we have industry-aligned projects for your portfolio, like human resources, e-commerce, automobile, food service, healthcare. We cover a lot of different domains here in this industry-aligned projects, which you also can work on, and many more, which this program covers. And also, we'll be taking you through the learning environment of this program. So, Jeremy, can you take us through the learning environment of the program? And also, meanwhile, you are preparing to share your screen. Like I've just put down a few questions for you in the chat. In case you have time, you can answer those as well as you're doing that.
Okay, for sure. So let's see. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll walk you guys through what it looks like. Let's see. Let's do that.
Also, folks, we are getting a lot of interesting questions from you in the Q&A box. We'll be taking those pretty soon, and we'll try to address as many questions as possible also in the meantime.
Yep. All right. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Please let us know in chat, folks, if you're able to see the screen. Yes, it's visible. I think we are getting yeses.
Okay, very good. Okay, so this is our learning management system. So when you log in, this is the first place where you will land. So I have a couple of different programs here that I've been teaching in. Let's walk through this one with Caltech, because this is actually far and away the most similar one to what you're looking at here. In fact, this is nearly identical. So basically you click on that, it initially takes you to your courses. If you, again, need some things that you need a refresher on, like programming or math, you can find that in the prerequisites. But the core courses you can find here. So they're all given in order. So you can see in this one, there's sort of like an orientation or introduction, and then an introduction to artificial intelligence. There is an introduction to Python as well for data science here. Then we get into the applied data science with Python, machine learning, deep learning with Keras and TensorFlow. And then in this particular program, we got into some advanced deep learning and computer vision, and then finally the Capstone project. So your layout here will be extremely similar, although the particular class list that you see will be just a little bit different because of your particular program. Then you can find any of the electives that Rasha mentioned here. So in this particular one, we had statistics, NLP and speech recognition, reinforcement learning, and then an artificial intelligence masterclass as well that were totally optional and at no extra charge for the students who did that. And then your certification, you can also see here once you've unlocked it. So I didn't do any of the projects because I'm teaching the course, so so mine's not unlocked. So that is largely what that looks like. And then to kind of give you guys a little bit of a, let's see, I might actually have something interesting to show you guys here. We'll see. It may have been wiped out because the class is over, but let's see. So this is kind of what the class will look like when you get in. So at any time, you can actually go through all of these different sort of pre-recorded materials that cover a lot of the topics or all of the topics, and they're actually covered quite well. But then there are the live class sessions, which, again, this session isn't active, so there won't be anything here, but there will be sort of a class schedule laid out. You'll see the dates across the bottom. And then when it's time for class, there'll actually be a big blue button here in the bottom corner that says attend class. So you click on that, that pulls you into the class. You can find your assessments here, and then also for the hands-on coding part, which a lot of the time I'll walk students through particular things. Let's see. This will get reset on the 6th of November. Sure. So there might not actually be anything in here for me to show you guys, but we'll see. But we actually do have an entire Jupyter Lab environment in here where we can walk through exercises in class, and also where you can experiment with different things. Oh, cool. There is something here. Yeah. So this actually is a notebook that I coded up live with this class, where we actually went through a feed-forward artificial neural network architecture. So we used only NumPy and Matplotlib just to kind of really show kind of the inner workings, like how do these models work. So different cells are kind of doing different things. So here we're defining our activation functions, our objective functions, our metrics, which we only did R squared and accuracy for this example, quick little pre-processing function, linear regression for comparison down the road. And then, yep, this is our actual feed-forward artificial neural network model definition here. So these are all the different things that go into the training. So there's a .fit method here that trains the model. And then we have some internal methods here, the forward train and forward predict, and then finally a predict method. And then we also have an autoencoder here that we implemented. So we implemented these live in class and then simulated some data and ran through kind of fitting the model, different things, kind of conducted some different experiments. So so that's the kind of thing that you can sort of expect going into class, is that you'll have access to this environment, which is currently running Python 3.10. And it has all the packages you would need to do, super cool data science stuff. So, all right. So that is I'll stop sharing. That's our tour of the learning management system.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for taking us through the learning environment. Folks, we just covered the learning environment here. Now moving on to the learner outcomes here. So as I've mentioned earlier, the learners basically in the previous classes have consisted of learners from world-class organizations and diverse industries. Industries like IT, software product manufacturing, pharma and healthcare, BFS, and many others. And companies which they come from ASAP, Coatbridge, Wells Fargo, Target, Siemens, Infosys, IBM, HP, and many more industries like that. We also offer, I think someone asked if we actually help with, assisting in job for someone who basically is coming from an entry level, having no experience in AML before. So Simplilearn does provide careers and services, which basically helps you with job search, where you get access to free access to expert webinars and career events with industry leaders, option to choose from real-world projects across industries and create a portfolio of projects. Job as a services, we have partnered with Talent Inc. here. Basically, which starts at bootcamp completion, and is valid for 6 months. In the job as a services here by Talent Inc., you get access to job portal, resume rabbit service, and basically resume review and rewrite service from Top Resume, and one-on-one interview service from Top Interview. So I think we have one question here, very interesting question here. I'll just put it down for you in the chat here, because you've gotten a lot of questions that might be hard to navigate. So Jeremy, I put down a question for you. I think this is from Steve. What I can make out from the email ID here, correct me if I'm wrong. As a forensic auditor and a fraud examiner and member of Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, ACFE, what supplement skills do you think fraud professionals should work on to increase the knowledge in the existing AI/ML environment?
It's an excellent question. So I would say probably the best thing you could do as someone who professionally detects and prevents fraud is to just make yourself familiar with the different machine learning models that are used in fraud detection and anomaly detection. So that would be, models within the supervised learning sort of category. So really anything that does classification, all the way from, the easiest ones like naive Bayes classifiers or logistic regression, all the way up into artificial neural networks, and in some deep learning architectures like ResNext is kind of a current hot one right now. You'll definitely want to understand kind of the limitations and strengths and weaknesses of each of these models. And there are even some unsupervised and reinforcement learning algorithms that are also commonly used in this space as well. So I think as someone who already is kind of a deep expert in fraud, it sounds like, if you just understood how the algorithms work, you would be positioned to actually be like a real force for preventing fraud, because the algorithms themselves, um, so for example, say like a Gaussian mixture model, everyone has access to what a Gaussian mixture model is. Um, the real key to making sure that it works well is understanding what are going to be the best, most informative features you could engineer out of the data to fit that model to, right? And that's true of anything, right? Like random forest, neural networks, whatever. Um, that really is kind of the thing that separates like okay data scientists from like really great data scientists, or the ones that know how to engineer the best features out of the data. And yeah, if you're someone who is a forensic auditor or a fraud examiner, you're going to have a real clear idea of like what are some powerful things to look for in the data that you could feed to your model as inputs. So yeah, I think if you kind of combine those two skill sets of an expertise in fraud with some knowledge about how these machine learning models work, I mean, you could do all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for giving a detailed explanation, Jeremy. I think Steve says, got it. Thanks, Jeremy. I think we'll take one more question. As we promised, I will take some questions before we move forward. I think this is from Mukta. I can't make out the name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. What opportunities and role do you see in AI ML for 20, 25 plus years experience in software consulting services and management area?
So I would say the opportunity is huge. Since the release of Chat GPT, a lot of different experts in the field have kind of updated their forecasts for like how big this industry or this space is going to be, and any of the estimates are massive. So on the more conservative side, some people think it's only going to be about 7 trillion. Other people think it's double that. So, but no one's really debating that this is going to be in the trillions of dollars. So it's going to be a massive, massive space. Um, and I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities for people who want to, who are very curious, who are very keen to apply the scientific method to things that it has not traditionally been applied to, like business processes, and hypotheses about businesses and markets and things like that. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of money to be made. But I should also warn you guys, like that's sort of not the best reason to get into it. Um, so my background in education was in mathematics. So my degree's in mathematics. I'm kind of a mathematician, and have been a mathematician before I became a data scientist. So I got into this field because I just actually genuinely love mathematics. I think it's a lot of fun to build models about things that can accurately describe things and that can make accurate predictions about things. I mean, it's like actually a thing I kind of get like a thrill from doing, like that you see that your model is making like accurate predictions about this thing that's happening. Um, I just think that that's really really cool, and then it just also happens that I got lucky and that you can actually have a career and make money doing it. Those are the people that I think really do make the best data scientists, and that really kind of achieve the most, and that are sort of the most fun to work with. Um, it's kind of like anything else, right? Like if you just get into it for the money, um, you're probably not going to enjoy it that much. You're not going to work that hard at it. You can kind of only tolerate so much. So if you're like I hate math, but I want to make a lot of money, there are other ways to make a lot of money. so
Mhm.
so that's just kind of something to think about. Is do you really like this kind of thing?
Definitely. Thank you so much for answering that, Jeremy, and giving us a detailed explanation. Mukta, please let us know if that answers your question. If you have any follow-up question, you can let us know in the chat or in the Q&A box. We'll be taking more questions here. We have talked about the skills here. We have talked about basically what career paths, what are the hottest trending career paths you can aspire for, in AIML in 2024. We would like to know, are you interested in enrolling to the UTLS AIML Bootcamp? And also, let's not forget you're getting a bonus offer also for attending this webinar. So I'm just launching a quick poll here. Please do let us know. Here you can see two quick options here. So please share with us your interest towards enrollment into the UTLS AIML Bootcamp here. We'll be taking a few more questions here after this. And I'll be taking you through the enrollment steps of the program and what is the program schedule, upcoming cohort, what is the program fee, program structure, and we'll be talking more about that and taking a few more questions here. So meanwhile, I just keep this poll live for 50 seconds more for folks who are sharing their interest about the program. Also, let's not forget the bonus offer you'll be getting for basically attending this webinar here. Also, in case you are planning to basically join the program, maybe in coming months, you're not sure when to start exactly, so don't worry about that. We have like calls throughout the year, and obviously we'll be, asking you when do you plan to enroll as well, just to get an idea. So you can avail the bonus offer anytime, throughout the year as well. So you don't have to worry about that. So yeah. We have talked about the industry aligned projects. We've talked about the Capstone projects you can add to your portfolio, and having UTLS on your portfolio will definitely enhance your profile and take it to another level. And basically having a UTLS university on your CV will definitely give you that prestigious accomplishment you're looking for. So I can see a lot of interest coming towards enrollment, so that's great. But I think I'll just give 50 seconds more for the poll for folks who are still thinking about it. Meanwhile, let's utilize this time. Because we are moving towards the Q&A part of the session. I can see a few more questions from the folks here, but please do go and put down your questions because you have joined the session. So I'm pretty sure you have a lot of questions about AI future, AI career, how to transition into AI. You can let us know in the Q&A box. So let's utilize this time and put down your questions in the Q&A box as we're moving towards taking your questions and addressing them. So, yeah. Awesome. I think I can see folks have already shared responses on the poll here. So I think I'll just give 10 seconds more. Okay, so here let us know, are you interested in enrolling the UTLS AIL Bootcamp? To the quick poll you see on your screen here. Would you like to enroll into the program? And I'll just give 5 seconds more. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me quickly end the poll, and thank you so much for sharing your interest towards enrollment to the program. I saw a lot of interest, so let me take you through the enrollment steps here. So the program fee here for the program is $8,000, and if you are looking for financing options, those are also available for as low as $704 per month. I'll just quickly share the program link with you folks here, because I saw a lot of you folks have joined from different regions apart from US as well. So you can check out the fee for your own region in this link here, which I've shared for the program, AIML Bootcamp program by UTLS. And also, if you have any questions, you can basically reach out to us at ask@simplearn.net. I'm just sharing that email ID also here for you to basically keep a note of it in case you have any questions. And let's talk about the basically program schedule. So the induction classes for this one is starting on January 8th, 2024. That is next year, and the classes also will be starting on January 8th. You need to follow 3 simple steps for enrollment. You need to submit an application to us at askus@simplearn.net. Based on that, your application will be going for review based on the eligibility and prerequisites which we have already shared with you. And based on that, you'll be getting admissions offer letter from Simplilearn, and learning consultants from Simplilearn will be reaching out to you. So folks who have already shared with us their enrollment interest, we would love to know how soon do you plan to enroll. You can see a quick poll on your screen. This will give us an idea when exactly we need to reach out to you with the admissions offer letter. So for folks who are looking for immediate upcoming cohort, which we have already shared January 8th, 2024, next year. So you can choose that one. In case you are still thinking about it and not sure, basically when do you plan to enroll, maybe next 3 months, within 6 months, or maybe more than 6 months from now, you have other 3 options to choose from. So you can quickly choose from these options. This will give us a better idea about, when do you plan to enroll and when exactly we need to reach out to you. Okay, I think I'll just give 10 seconds for this poll here. As folks are sharing when do they plan to enroll. Okay, I think I can see most of the folks have already shared their responses in the poll here. So I'll just quickly end it in 5 seconds because we have exceeded few minutes of the session here. So I'll just end the poll here. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. And as we have addressed a lot of your queries, during the session itself, so we would actually also love to know if you need assistance in enrolling to the program. So there are 2 quick options here for folks to have shared interest towards enrollment and also have let us know when you plan to enroll. Please do share your responses for the poll here. This is the poll for those folks here. Okay, I think I'll give 10 seconds more for the poll here before we move towards the end of the session. We have exceeded few minutes of the webinar here. So sorry for that. We tried addressing, as many queries as possible throughout the session. I think I can see responses on the poll here. I'll just give 5 seconds more for a few of the folks who are still basically sharing the responses. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me quickly end the poll. So we are towards the end of the session. So thank you so much, Jeremy, taking the time out and taking us through this interesting, AIML masterclass. Would you like to say something to the folks here before we end the session?
Yeah, just thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time. So it's been a lot of fun to talk to you guys about this, to answer your questions. And I really hope that you guys, start your journey on becoming a data scientist or machine learning engineer. And I think that really, this is the way to do it, right? So if you think about it, I mean, it took me a long time, right? Years of studying math at university. I saw the other day on LinkedIn, someone put a thing that was like, become a data scientist in 30 days. And I was curious. So I clicked on it and kind of looked into it more. And they were like, oh, you can spend like 3 days learning linear algebra and then spend like 4 days learning calculus. And I was just like, that's insane. Like that. So hopefully everybody here kind of realizes like, that's not real, right? You can't really, can't really do this in like 30 days. But there's got to be some kind of happy medium between like, could you do this whole thing in 30 days? Or, do you have to spend years at a university? And really, a program like this partnered with a university that's, anywhere from 6 months to a year. Some of our programs are a year long. I mean, that's realistic, right? Like that's actually like a, realistic, like comprehensive program. So, I really think this is kind of the, the way to go about doing it. So yeah, it's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, once again. Thank you so much for joining. We just have like a quick survey for that. If you want, you can leave. I just want to basically understand what topic of or areas of interest they would like to see covered in the future webinar. So I've quickly launched a poll here. So I'll just need 1 minute from you folks just to understand what exactly you would want to see in the future webinars from Simplilearn. So this is a multiple choice poll, so you can select multiple options and submit it. So I'll just read out those options for you. We have pretty interesting options here. So I think today we covered industry trends, sort of, specific insights in this session. And I see that, what an interesting session that was. And we would love to do more of these. So you can see these options here. So program project demos, soft skill development, resume enhancement, review and tips, trends, industry specific insights, tools, platforms, library, workshop, personal branding and networking, case studies, career advancement strategy. So you can let us know in this quick survey poll here, what topics or areas of interest would you like to see covered in the future webinars on Simplilearn? So this will really help us, as we do a lot of these webinars throughout the month, and you usually have a lot of these webinars with Jeremy as well. And we have tried a lot of webinars with you, like project demo and industry specific, webinar and career masterclass and program preview. So we would love to know what exactly are you looking for when you basically come to these webinars here. And we would love to make it much more exciting, much more interesting for you, much more valuable, when you're giving us these 60 minutes and attending this webinar here. So, yeah. And also, I saw that the audience was pretty patient here. They actually stayed throughout even though we extended the session. I saw that. So you can let us know in case the survey does not cover what you want. You can let us know in the chat or in the Q&A box as well. I can see someone has replied to us that I would love to roll immediately, but because of my background in engineering, but my financial commitment would not allow that. So the cohort is anyway starting in January 8th, and there are many more upcoming cohorts for this program. And we have financing options available as well in case you want to, utilize those options. So please do let us know. You can write to us at askus@simplilearn.net. If basically you need more assistance or want to understand. I'm just sharing that on the chat once again here. And I think folks have already shared a lot of responses for the survey poll. So thank you so much for taking a few minutes for this. This will give us an understanding what exactly you want in these webinars. I'll end the poll. And I'll just quickly share that we actually got 50% of the work for career advancement strategies, 41% for trends. That's interesting. 45% for soft skills, and 41% for tools, platforms, libraries. So I think we will work on that and basically will be applying in the upcoming webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again, Jeremy. I saw that you were closely looking at the survey question. So I think we will have a discussion about that pretty soon for the upcoming webinars. But thank you so much. Thank you so much, folks. Have a good day, good evening, good morning, afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.